By the end of the lesson, I will be able to add fractions. Fractions must have a common denominator when you add them together. Adding fractions. The first thing you're going to do is find a common denominator. The second thing you're going to do is change the numerator by the same multiple the denominator was changed by. Number 3, you're going to add the numerators. And number 4, you're going to keep the same denominator. To find the least common multiple, we are going to use the cake. The least common multiple, or the LCM, will allow us to find a common denominator. If our denominators are already the same, we will just add the numerators. We're going to do the first two together. I have 4/5 plus 4/7. I notice that I do not have a common denominator, so I'm going to use the cake, and I'm going to have 5 and 7 next to one another. When I realize that there are no common factors between 5 and 7, I'm going to put an X where I would essentially put a factor. That's going to tell me to multiply 5 times 7 to get my least common multiple of 35. So my denominator needs to be 35 for both of my fractions. So if you want to set up your new fractions, that's fine with 35. The next thing that you're going to do is figure out what times 5 would get me to 35. And 5 times 7 is going to get me to 35. What I do on the bottom to the denominator, I have to do on the top. So I'm going to have 4 times 7, and that is going to get me to 28. Same process with the other fraction. I'm going to multiply what to 7 to get me to 35. And I'm going to multiply 7 by 5 to get me to 35. What I multiply the denominator by, I have to multiply the numerator. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by 5 also. And 5 times 4 is going to be 20. The last thing that I have to do is that I have to add the numerators. My denominator stays the same all the way across because it's a common denominator. 28 plus 20 is going to give me a numerator of 48, and that is my final answer. You can show your work this way, or you can separate your fractions like I'm going to do in the second one. I'm going to use the cake to figure out my LCM. I know that 2 is a factor of 4 and 8, so 4 divided by 2 is 2, 8 divided by 2 is 4. I can divide 2 and 4 again by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and that's as far as I can go. To find the LCM, I need to make an L. And inside that L, I'm going to multiply everything. So I have 2, 2, 1, and 2. Remember when we found the GCF, we only multiplied the side of our cake? With the LCM, we're going to multiply everything on the outside of our cake. So 2 times 2 times 1 times 2 is 8. So my common denominator is going to be 8. Now this is how I separate my two fractions. I write 5/4 and then I write 3/8. So that when I write my new fraction, my denominator has to be 8. They're next to one another. I need to figure out what times 8 will give me to 8 and what times 4 will give me to 8. So 4 times 2 would give me 8 as an answer. What I do on the bottom, I have to do on the top. 8 times 1 will give me 8 as an answer, and I'm going to do the same thing to the numerator that I do to the denominator. So the first fraction, 5 times 2 is going to be 10, and 3 times 1 is going to be 3. Now all I have to do is add these two together. You can add them like that and then say 13/8. Or you can rewrite them side by side and write underneath 10/8 plus 3/8 equals 13/8. Either way is okay. You're going to try these. Pause the video. When you are prepared with your answer, go ahead and press play and check your work alongside mine and your answer. So pause the video now and check over your work, check your answer. If your answers are the same, then there's no reason to check your work. If your answers are not the same, then you need to look at my work and your work to see what you did incorrectly. Last one, extra practice. These are all up to you. So you can do these or you can choose not to. You're going to add the fractions together after you pause the video, and then press play after you have your answers to check your answers. These have no work with them, just the answers. So if you got these two wrong, then you need to be asking tomorrow in class for help.